Hello guys, I hope you're doing very well. Who is good and who is bad? Big question, right? And we've got many people reaching out to us, asking us, oh, is Putin good or is Putin bad? Is, I don't know, any leader good or bad? Is this guy good or bad? Is Trump good or bad? And the key thing is you need to understand why is it that you think in terms of good and bad? Why are those people and potentially you asking yourself those type of questions? It's simple. You have been put in a framework where you are thinking in terms of good and bad. And it was intentional to put you inside this framework so that you think in terms of good and bad. How they put you into that framework? Simple. Look at history. They mostly teach you history from a good and bad perspective. Hitler was bad. Mussolini was bad. And some Western leaders were good. Churchill was good, for instance, right? And so they put you in that framework from an historic perspective at school, right? School teach you good and bad. This guy is good, this guy is bad. The concept of good and bad is constantly reinforced, right? And it's reinforced also in movies, right? The good winning over the bad. The evil villain, right? The Joker. The Batman is good, right? You've got to actually realize that they put you into that framework. And that when you watch a movie, you always expect the good to win, right? But to the point where you are applying this good and bad to the current context and the current situation, wondering who is actually good and who is bad. And this is where it's actually irrelevant. But it's really hard to understand why, and it's really hard to get out of this concept of good and bad. Because Putin is neither good or bad. Because Trudeau is neither good and bad. It's all about their own interest. So instead of seeing things from a good and bad perspective, I would see it from a personal interest perspective, or from the interest of a group perspective, right? And you need to go back to basics, right? So how to go back to basics? You've got people like me, you've got groups of people, and we have interests, right? As we have interests in common, we team up together, we meet, and what do? We try to progress our own interest, right? So this is exactly what Klaus Schwab is doing, is building a group of people who have an interest in power, in influence, in growing wealth, and they meet together and they seek to push forward their interests. They seek to grow what they want to achieve, and for that they develop strategies. And the Great Reset is one of the strategies, right? So you need to think like this. So you've got individuals or a group of individuals, let's say for instance this Putin, or a group of people behind Putin that thinks to push their own interest. And you end up with different groups. So you've got the World Economic Forum, but even inside the World Economic Forum, you've got subgroups, right, who have different interests actually. So one group may seek purely power from a political and executive perspective. One group will purely seek money, right? And the interests of those two groups may actually not align everywhere. But all in all, globally, they would align on the generic goal of gaining more power, gaining more influence, gaining more money, right? Which is pretty equivalent actually, right? Once you've got position in power like Macron or Trudeau, you actually have access to money, right? So basically, there may be a little bit of divergence, but the interest of those people is aligned. And so is the strategy of Putin, right? Putin also may seek power. He may seek power from a different perspective than Trudeau or Macron or Arden, right? But all in all, he's on the same boat, navigating in the same direction, although that at some point he may not agree to use exactly this canal, but to use this path, right? But still going toward the same direction. So you've got people and group of people with interest going toward a targeted outcome, being power, money, influence, and they work toward this outcome. So there's actually seeing it from a bad or good perspective. It's actually wrong. You can actually put them all from a bad perspective, because at the end of the day, there is either control of the people or empowerment of the people. You know that we stand on the empowerments of the people. We empower people. So we're clearly there. The others, basically, be it Xi Jinping, Klaus Schwab, Bill Gates, Soros, Putin, seek control of the people. The control of the people enable them to access what they want to do, grow their wealth, grow the asset base of a company, whatever they seek behind, right? So thinking that because of a few action, because of a few words, that Putin or Trump is on the side of the people is actually totally fooling yourself. The key point here is that if they were really on the side of the people, they would promote decentralization, clearly. And this is not what they are promoting at all. This is not what is happening. The only way you can really empower people is to decentralize the system and avoid that a person or a small group of people accumulate a disproportionate leverage versus other people. I need to re-say it again because it's very important you get it. The only way you can really empower the people is that you create a system where you prevent a person or a group or a relatively small group of people to accumulate disproportionate leverage against all other people. And this is exactly what they are targeting, to have disproportionate leverage against you in terms of wealth, in terms of influence, in terms of power, in terms of network, in terms of physical force, right? In terms of technology, so that you have actually no more leverage. You can also see it. So I'm advising you to analyze it from a common interest perspective, right? But also from a leverage perspective, because what the West is trying to do against, for instance, Putin or Putin against the West is to increase leverage. So what is the leverage of Putin versus the West, or what is the leverage of the West versus Putin? And how this leverage is actually growing or decreasing based on stuff like that. So for instance, the invasion, Russia going into Ukraine is purely to rebalance the leverage between OTAN, right, the West, and Russia. That's it. Putin lost leverage, and you need to regain leverage. What are the actions that I can do to regain my leverage? So you see, it's not about doing something good for the people or doing something bad. It's about personally, me or my group of people, how can we regain leverage against another group of people? And this is the way you should see it. This is the way you should analyze it. It's way more complex than good or bad, but this is the right way to analyze it if you want to understand what is the strategy of that person, what is he seeking or what she is seeking behind her or his actions. That's it. Invite you to switch from good and bad to what is the interest of these people and what is their leverage and against who. And that's the reason why they hack. You don't need to try to understand if someone is good or bad, because this is the wrong playing field. This is the playing field where this is how they want you to think and analyze situation. And it actually leads nowhere. Mostly it will lead you toward hoping something from someone, hoping something from Trump, hoping something from Putin or whoever you think about, but you will get nothing out of that, if not an increased control on you, your family, your network, and that will not benefit you. Spot people who empower other people, and they explain you how to empower other people through decentralization, through preventing that someone or a group of people accumulate disproportionate leverage against all other people. Simple. Thank you.